Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing good, hope you guys are staying safe, and hope you guys are just enjoying life out here. So today's title, which is yet to be created, but as you can look down there, you should probably know what this title is going to be talking about, is basically I passed my AWS Cloud Practitioner Examination, and I just want to share some tips on how to do that with you guys. So if you end up liking this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get right into the video. So about the last week in March, I ended up taking my AWS Cloud Practitioner Exam, and I passed it. It was pretty cool, actually. Like, to know you studied for something self-taught. Like, I didn't go to any classes for it. Just open up my browser, studied, and took the test at the end of the month or something like that. So it was pretty cool. So my process might be a little bit different from others. The way I went about it was I did the digital training on AWS, the skill builder. What's it called? The AWS skill builder. Yeah. So it's a digital training course. It's free. I recommend that to everyone. If you guys want to know more about it, just comment in the comment section, and I'll put the link in the description to the course. So yeah, so I zoned out for a second there. So I ended up taking that course, free course. It's a self-paced course, so you go at your own pace. It's AWS staff basically teaching the course, at least from what I understand. They work for AWS, and they teach the course in a real simple way. I'm a very visual and auditory learner, so sometimes I need a hybrid of both. Sometimes one works better than the other. This in this course, it's done so well that if you're a visual learner, they use visual examples to explain to you what's going on. Theirs uses more of a coffee shop theme, so you're able to understand how like VPS works and subnets and private subnet, things like that. They just explain to you how things work via like a Amazon's coffee shop setting, and it's so easy to understand because you actually see the animation play through whenever. Give me a second. Okay, I'm back. So you're able to see there's an animation process that plays through it, and you're able to understand the themes a little better. What an internet gateway is, they use the animation to kind of explain to you how the customers are going to act as the packets, and it's pretty cool. So I was able to do that and understand the material very well. Now there's one thing to be taught how AWS cloud works. There's another thing to understand it. So in order for me to understand it, I went to easy note cards, and on every chapter of the course, I would take notes on my flashcards. So I didn't write notes down with a pen and a paper. I would pick out things that I thought were important to know, and I would note them in easy note cards, and I would use note cards to pretty much study. So about 3 hours every night before I went to bed, I would go over a chapter. It tells you what percentage of the course you have done. So I would try and do maybe 20% every night, depending on how intensive that chapter is. So sometimes I'll be like, all right, tonight I'm going to get through course 1 or chapters 1 through 3, because they weren't as like chapter 1 might be an intro, so it might not be as dense. So I'll just get through all 3 of them, and for that it worked well. So I would do 3 hours of just the course for that night, and then the next night, if the coursework I can't fully recall everything, I would bypass that course for the next day and just go over the note cards that I did until I really understand and I'm able to put together in words what I just learned. So if I was going to explain it to to someone who didn't know anything about cloud engineering, could I explain what I just read yesterday and what I just looked over today to them and help them understand it? That's how I looked at it. So I did that pretty much every night. I started the journey in about, I think, February. That's when I really like sat down and said, yeah, I'm going to do this. And by the end of March, I did it, took the test. So that's how I studied. Now, to prepare for the test, I am an awful test taker. I just am. So I can explain to you verbatim whatever a professor says, whatever's in a textbook. But when the test comes around, I just am terrible at. Like, I need unlimited amount of time to take tests just so I can digest the questions and do process of elimination. Like, I could know the answer, but I'm like, what if that answer is even what I did? I'm awful at test taking. Let's put it that way. But I know that. So the way I try to help myself is the day before the test, I try to do, a day or two before the test, I do practice questions. So I go online, I look for practice questions. I leave my note cards alone for right now, a couple of days before the test. So I do practice questions. AWS has some practice questions you can do for free. I do that. But what I'm trying to do is, when I take the practice questions, because I think AWS gives you 20, but the actual test is about 65 questions, which we'll get to later. But when I do that, let's say I get question 1 wrong, and I look at the options, because it's multiple choice. I look at the options. I try to go over each from option A through E. They're not like dummy answers, meaning like they're not going to ask you what an internet gateway is and then answer the multiple choice A is going to be like it's a shovel. Like, it's nothing like that. The incorrect answer still has some relevancy within the cloud. So what I would do is, for the questions I get wrong, I would still look over every multiple choice and try and think, okay, do I know what A is for? Do I know what B is for? Okay, C is the answer, but okay, we know C now because I can go back and look over why C is the right answer later on. But let's look through all these multiple choices and know what they correlate to for the future. So if I just missed one based on like, oh, I didn't read the question correctly, then I'm okay with that. But if I just took a leap of faith and picked something, then I know, all right, well, I didn't really know what the answer was. So that's how I did that. And then the day of the test, I looked over my flashcards. So I had about 180 flashcards, give or take. So what I did was, and these are, like I said, they're just flashcards to help you remember things. It's not every single note. Each note card doesn't hold like every note from chapter 1, or it's just things within the chapters that I know, all right, these are pretty important. Let me take these terms down. Things like that. Like, what is an internet gateway, for example? I would put that down. Or what is a subnet? Things like that. So EC2 instance. You get the drift. You catch my drift. So, I have my test at night. I'm a night owl, so like I tend to do better at things at night because I can focus more. So I ended up I was off of work that day, so I was able to start studying at about noon. So from noon till about 3 p.m. I looked over the first half of my note cards, so about 90 note cards, which it's just a refresher. You're not doing it to learn at that point. You're just doing it to refresh. So, you highlight the ones you're like, oh, I completely forgot about that. But what I always suggest is you go in the order of which you created the note cards. So if you started the note cards from chapter 1, don't shuffle them. It's going to be like a story for you. So go ahead and just start from chapter 1, and then you're going to remember each night. Like, okay, I did study this. This does make sense. Because now there's a bridge between each note card. But if you shuffle them, now you're just saying, oh yeah, that makes sense. This is what this means. Cool. But there's no flow of information. It's just, this is. Okay, this is what I learned in chapter 2. This is chapter 11. But what I suggest is you go from chapter 1, you don't shuffle the cards, at least at first, and then you go through them, and then you're able to connect different note cards with you have a train of thought going from one note card to the other, because that's how you studied. That's how you put the note cards down. So, and then from about 3 o'clock, I got pooped out, took a nap, and then later on, I did the last half. I believe my test was around 6 or 7. You know, you have to do a check-in 30 minutes earlier, so let's say 6:37. And then I knew at 5 o'clock, I was done. I wasn't going to look at any notes. I wasn't going to review YouTube to see if there's any practice questions or whatever. Just did what I know. And you kind of get the sense of what you're not going to be great at. So when the test came and I was able to check it and everything, once I started the test, I already knew that there's some questions pertaining to some categories of what I studied that I'm not really strong at. But the test is 50 questions. I believe it's 65 questions, but 15 of them are not going to be counted. They're going to be used as an assessment for a next test. So for cloud practitioners going forward, the exam, they're going to use those 15 questions to see how they're going to create the next test or something like that. But the 50 questions, I'm not going to say 1 through 50, it's randomized. So 50 questions are going to be graded. It's multiple choice and select multiple options. So you're going to have multiple choice where only one answer is correct, and multiple response where you have to pick at least 2 answers from the multiple choice to satisfy the question. So I already knew there's at least one category that I was going to be weak at. So when those kind of questions came, I did the best I could, but I didn't sweat it. Like I wasn't anxious about it. I kind of knew, all right, this part is not my strong suit, but I knew I was pretty much good at everything else. So did the test, passed it. You get the certificate. I think they say 5 business days, 3 to 5 business days, but by the next day, the certificate was within my AWS account, so I was just able to download it, and that was pretty much it. So, if you're gonna take anything from this, is use the AWS Skill Builder. I think that's what it's called, the Skill Builder course. Like I said, if you want the link to the course, just let me know in the comment section, and I will provide that in the description later on. So you go ahead and there's a sensor. You're not going crazy. There is a sensor in here. It did just go dark. So like I was saying, use the Skill Builder. It's free. It's great information. It's coming right from the AWS. Number 2, use flashcards. I would say I don't like to write out flashcards because I might lose them. So just use a Quizlet, use easy note cards. That's what I used, just because, nostalgia from college. That's what we used freshman year for finals. So it was pretty nostalgic. So use easy note cards or just regular flashcards, but be detailed in what you write, but don't overcomplicate the flashcard. Like, don't try and fit 70 details within one flashcard. You probably already know what what you don't know is what I'm gonna say. So if I'm learning about EC2 instances and I don't even know what EC2 means, then start with knowing what EC2 means on that flashcard, and then go to what an instance is. Don't try and put EC2 instance. Okay, EC2 means this. Instance. If instance means this, if I put this together, that's what you're over complicating the card. Now you're using the card as like a notebook or a textbook or something. Like, you're creating a textbook out of it. You just want the vital information, something you can quickly look at, and it refreshes your memory, and you move on. So the camera turned off. So what I was saying is, just make sure to be detailed within your note cards, but you're not trying to make you're not trying to write an essay on these note cards. It's the main point. Number 2, before you go into the test, make sure you're reviewing quite constantly And there are a lot of tools on YouTube that you can use to quiz yourself. So you can take the practice questions on YouTube. I know for most of them, they give you the right answer to the questions within a couple of seconds or minutes of the actual of the questions being posed. So try and beat the clock, basically. Try and see, oh, is this the right answer? And don't be scared to like skip through if each question's taken too long. So just skip through, but keep a mental note of, okay, I didn't get this kind of question right. So my problem is with security, not the infrastructure. So I believe the test is broken down into like 4 different categories. So you're able to know which ones you're pretty strong at and where you're pretty weak at. That's number 2. Number 3, before you go into the test, try and review those flashcards. I would say review the flashcards quite frequently. There's some nights where I'm just so tired, I don't want to learn a new chapter. So what I do is I just make sure I go from note card number 1 all the way to like the note card I'm currently on, just to understand what the concept is. The concepts are. There's some nights where I know, all right, I've gone through 3 chapters, I've made very good note cards on them, but there's still lapses within the memory and within my memory for certain key terms. So what I do is I make sure to review that note card for that night, for the last chapters I did. Review those note cards, make sure I understand it, then I can go on to the next chapter. So that's tip number 3. And then number 4, I think I said, yeah. So tip number 4, the last tip, is when you take the test, it's going to be very wordy. So the test is your eyes are going to read a lot of things. So just be prepared, like eat well, make sure you're focused, because it's going to have a lot of words. So question number 1 could be, just a simple sentence, and then you just have to find the answer. And then question number 2 could be the same thing. Then question number 3 is like 3 sentences with, it's a scenario. They give you a scenario, and the multiple choice questions are going to be very similar. Like, you could think, okay, I can use an EC2 instance for this, but they would be like, all right, do you want to use a reserved instance? Do you want to use a convertible? It's a convertible instance in savings plan or whatever. It's going to start getting more in depth. The based on the scenario. So the question is, are you going to be able to focus through those scenarios and be able to think critically while being timed? So you have to forget the time. I know it's weird to say, but you have to kind of keep it in the back of the mind that you're being timed, but you're going to have more than enough time to answer these questions. So just keep in the back of your mind, yeah, I'm being timed, but what you want to do is you want to make sure you're reading the questions correctly and you're reading the options correctly. When I took the test, there's a way to eliminate the options. So if you're given options A through D, you're able to eliminate. All right, C doesn't make sense. You can kind of X that away, so you're only left with a couple of multiple choices, A, B, and D, and then you can do that, and then you're able to, move on. So I was able to pass the test based on these tips I'm giving you. It tells you how satisfactory you did, which once you pass the test, I mean, it doesn't show on the certificate where your deficiency was. So, I mean, if you were really bad, it wouldn't pass you, like you would not pass. So it just kind of keeps you on your toes that, all right, well, if you're going to move on, just make sure you know that maybe the security part of the test you weren't really good at. So in the next test, make sure you probably study more for the security portion. My thing is just, it's a great certificate to have. I know, like, it gave me a sense of pride knowing, like, hey, I worked hard for this and I got it. But it's also something that you should know, like, if you don't have other things to back up to back up your resume, this is kind of just a piece of paper. So just make sure you're working on your resume, you're working on projects that you're going to be able to show. Try and work on projects where you deploy things in the cloud or things like that, just to show that you do have some cloud work. And the AWS certificate will act as a booster rather than like the only thing that matters on your resume. But hopefully this helps you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you do find it helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think, and hope you guys are doing okay. Like I always say, see you guys on the next video. Peace.